bit of African time made us come late, and I'm going to rush to be able to run back to the UK to go, because I'm traveling back to Nigeria. Well, I did tell you June, well before we came here, I said, June, whenever people, highly sophisticated people, I'm coming from background of a trader in Nigeria, that whenever something like you gather, I prefer at times interaction than lecture. Because often in time, it's easier to get somebody to write something, and you just read that and go. And you don't learn from the people. I think those of us who are there should learn a lot from you by interaction with your questions, so you will know. I know I was given a topic which says the dignity of
restoring
the dignity of humanity in our nation, is it?
Yeah.
In our national development. It's a very broad topic. First thing you ask when we talk about dignity of a person or humanity, what are we talking about? What do we do as a society to be able to restore people's dignity? Because we're talking about character, behavior, respect, how, of course, when I was coming here, just this morning, something happened at the airport, and somebody said to me, I said, that's exactly what I'm going to talk today. As you can see the behaviors of these people and everything. We're going to talk about dignity, behavior, character of people and everything. And restoring and building a nation. What are the ingredients that makes difference in one nation having that dignity and not? In our country today, because I have to go back to Nigeria, is a critical component that can help development. And what is the foundation of that dignity? Number one is education. Because by having an educated mind, God always said, the more educated a society is, the more developed. You need to invest in education. You need to have a system where there is law and order. You live in the Western world, and I assure you, they don't have better weather than we have. We definitely have more better weather than here, and I'm sure. We have better food. Our environment, everything is better. But they have an intangible asset called rule of law. So if I go to Birmingham station now, I can't just push everybody down and say, like they will do in Nigeria, you know what now? Nobody wants to know who you are. They just know you as one of those who wants to use the train. And you have to behave as somebody who wants to use the train. I entered the train while I was coming here, the seats were reserved. So you don't just go and sit down in one place and say, somebody says, oh, it's my seat. Say, who are you? You know who I am. The seats are reserved. So it's a simple things when we talk about dignity. And in order to have now, which is said is rule of law and order in the system, is what helps when you talk about human dignity and development. The rule of law, orderliness contribute more in the GDP of the Western world, then fact is number one. Because I'm sure if there's anything, if I enter contract with Davis University and it fails, I can go to court. And the court can interpret and do the right thing. If I decide to go to extreme and say, even beat my wife, she will go to court. By the time it calls police, you know where I will be before they start even asking me a question. But if I do it in Nigeria, when police come, I'll say, this woman has been the problem. I ask me, police will even arrest her. Of course, they lose that. In fact, if I call my village and I say that, if this woman goes and look after them, if this woman is breaking up to they will even pack the things before me. So then, what am I trying to say? These are simple things. The topic we should be looking at Nigeria is why these simple things we're talking, why is it not working in Nigeria? And then somebody went to pay consequence, and somebody asked me about politics in Nigeria, about the new UNN Alumni, about what party I'm contesting, and everything. I said, that's what I'm trying to change. The one part that God said that Nigeria, that let us report go. And the poverty rate in Nigeria has increased to well 1.9 million people living in poverty. That is more than 50% of our population. But instead of that being the topic, we are still talking about NHL. We are still talking about the bicycle contest. Like I told the pharmaceutical Nigerian Pharmaceutical Association of America, we invited me 3 weeks ago and want me to talk about artificial intelligence. And I said to them, you people don't know where I'm coming from. You know where I'm coming from. You won't be asking me about that. We're still talking about how to learn basic things. And you're talking about self-defense. I told him a story that once we were talking about power. When I was governor, I was a member of Jordan's Economic Council, because I was the only governor, the only person in government that said, Peter, you must join my council. And we're talking about power, no electricity, no this. And somebody says, it's come from Brazil to tell us about nuclear power. So when he finished his presentation, I raised my hand. And Mr. President, please beg this man to go back. Because I'm not that I beg him to go, but I said, we are talking about, we have coal, which we have not used very well. We have this, and say nuclear power. This is not a problem in Japan. That are sophisticated as they are. So I told him, I said, artificial intelligence is good. It's going to, it's something we need to embrace. But you don't have 20 million people out of school. Basic skill education. I heard about artificial intelligence. So let's start with the basics. And that's why I told you, I said, let's discuss that. Today, as a country, we have the highest number of people living in poverty. We have the highest number of out-of-school children, of over 20 million. We have overtaken countries like India in infant mortality. India is 7 times our population. But we've overtaken them in infant mortality. We used to be the biggest country in Africa in terms of GDP. Today, we're about number 5 or 6. I can go on and on. We are one of the most insecure places on the surface of the earth. We are one of the hungriest places. Today, we are among the 20 most hungriest places. Last night, I was telling somebody that the things you see and listen to that pains you. A country like Ukraine is at war. And Ukraine donated grain to Nigeria to fight hunger. The entire Ukraine is not up to, it's about, we have 25% more in terms of land size, just northern Nigeria. Ukraine is about 600,000 square kilometers, the entire Ukraine. And we're about 900 and something. And they had war. Last year, they gave us grain to fight hunger. That's their topic. That's what we should be discussing. What brought us to this? What is wrong with us? Why are we not producing? How we see Nigeria remains one of the, I don't know how to say, in terms of potential, a nation in the country, in the entire world. Just like Africa is. We have all the natural resources that can make any nation great. We have our population is huge. We have the vast land. 60% of our arable land is all cultivated. But we're hungry. We have youths. What you hear now is the people tell you about criminality, which is making most of you not to even come home. But I'll tell you, our problem is poverty. That's why you have, because you have large pool of youth unemployment that are not being supported in any way to do anything. Didn't go to school. None of you here can go and live in the bush. Because you've been educated, you've been exposed. If they take you to the bush even to pay you, will come out. But people live there because they never had education, nobody cared about them and everything. So we should be looking at what is the problem. The problem is very simple. Leadership. It's cumulative effect of leadership failure over the years. Leadership that fail in terms of competence, in terms of capacity, in terms of compassion, character, and commitment. And they use all sorts of things. Also manipulation. So they don't want to talk about the problem, they want to talk about who is the INEC chairman, in which party are you, where are you coming from. David saw me and I'm asking one of the lecturers in his university, I said, you are a Yoruba person. I want to call your tribe now. Is there any way you will buy bread cheaper? So we can go there and buy. Last night I asked a Muslim, is there anywhere Muslims buy bread cheaper? He said no. I said, so why are we not doing the right thing? That is what I urge you to discuss more in this your weekend conversation. How do we change here? And some of you will say to me, no, it's not our topic. Asian countries were changed by their diaspora. I've lived here. I was in school in the late 80s, call it the 80s and 90s. till middle of 90s. If you go to any school, major schools here, especially the business schools, from Oxford to Cambridge, to Harvard, to Columbia, they were Indians and Chinese people. They've all gone back. I recall when the dean of the George Business School used to tell us about China. In late 80s, 90s, he kept telling us of the dragon and the dog. We never knew to get to this stage. They were changed by their own people. So we are waiting for you to come and change Nigeria. That will be your discussion. How do we get this to work? How do we get people to be productive? Because all we need is to move the society from its present state by investing in critical areas of development, education, health, and pulling people out of poverty. And how do you pull them out of poverty? By changing the country from consumption to production. You don't have a country, you have a country that is not productive, that is not contributing anything. So you have a confusion on it. Because your country is not producing anything. We can't even feed ourselves. When we have vast land, it can change the world. And that's what I do. That's what I told you, I'm going to do. 10 more countries like Bangladesh, with huge population. Bangladesh sits on 148,600 square kilometers of land. And they produce 50 to 60 million tons of milled rice. Our country, Nigeria, cannot produce 10% of that. When our two biggest states, Niger State at 76.3 and Borno State at 70.8, combined is almost the size of Bangladesh because it's 147 something. And have less population, so they have more space. Both states have a population of less than 17 million. Bangladesh have a population of about 170 million. So 10 times that population, yet they produce it. A tiny country like Netherlands.
Here are several thoughtful questions you could ask Hero.
A tiny country like Netherlands, if you minus what is about 3,000 square kilometers, the agricultural export is about 120 billion euros, which is about 130 billion naira. More than 3 times what we earn from oil. Yet, just like I mentioned before, Niger State, our biggest state, is 2.5 times the size of Netherlands. We have biggest insecurity problem we have today is Borno State, within the Sambisa forest. That is the fertile farmland that anybody can use. Borno State alone is more than twice the size of Belgium. In fact, the Sambisa forest has given us problems. About 60,000 square kilometers. That is 3 times the size of Israel. And they can feed themselves and export food. Israel has 22 times 366. So you can go on and see how your country can work. I just told Prof. He asked me a question. How do we fight corruption? I said, Prof, you can fight corruption. If you're not stealing, your wife is not stealing, your children are not stealing, you reduce it by 60%. And but we have to have a society that is productive. As I did ask this question, I said, Prof, it costs more to keep any Nigerian governor, because I've served in that space, than keeping the governor of California. California is the richest state in America with over 4.2 trillion economy. What is about the sixth richest country in the world? Nigeria is 200 billion, which means Nigeria is not up to 5% of Californian GDP. But I can tell you, if people see Californian governor with 6-car convoy, he will not be governor the next day. If he enters private jet, that is the end of him. He might not live in California again. But in Nigeria, and I'm telling you from experience, I told Prof, say, Prof, I'm telling you from experience, I became governor in my state. We didn't have money for enough money for education. We didn't have enough money for health. There's so many things we didn't have money. Our schools were without desk. There was no computer. There's no buses. There's nothing for our school. But we have an office called Office of First Lady. They have more budget than our ministers had. Somebody who was not elected, had nothing to do with government. He had a convoy to create confusion. If we have advisors to advise him, the advisor, and I asked him, what are you going to advise her about? But he asked me to know about advisors with a full convoy, a full office. And I asked him, have you ever seen Office of First Lady of any state in America? No. Even the First Lady that is at the center is just notional, no office, nothing. Everybody in Nigeria is a title. She has an office with written your workers and convoy moves around. So these are things we should be discussing. But rather than discuss it most times, what do Nigerians do? We celebrate the same criminality. So if I come into Birmingham or coming to London, I will see Nigerians telling me about those who bought houses in London. I met a very good pastor when I arrived back here today. You know, took notes of him and everything, and I said, sir. And I'm happy that he said that all of you are part of the problem. Bishop, everybody. They're part of the problem. Because everybody knows that P2B did not own a house in Birmingham when he became a governor or president or whatever. Tomorrow he comes here and buys a big house, decorates it, calls the bishop to come and bless it, invite you people for housewarming, and everybody is there. Rather than call police, they will do that. They will be praising him. Everybody will be saying, wherever the money, the bishop will pray that wherever the money came from, may God multiply it. This man has just stolen our money. And everybody knows that is not that everybody is aware where the money came from. And we're celebrating. And you see people who say, since you became this, you've not helped me. Since you became that, you've not had everything. And that is the quarrel. That's what I was showing Prof. I showed him what my head of service, how sister wrote. And I showed your president something my head of service wrote when I was going to be. When I became governor for the first 1 year, I was quarreling with everybody. And of course, as you know, I was impeached, removed in office twice as governor. I was thrown out within the first 6 months. But he saw what I told him. I said, my head of service wrote a paper I wanted to publish, which I said should not publish it because it will cause me more problem within the political class. But the topic is said stinginess as a real strategy. Because we are quarreling every day. He comes to me and says, Peter, every civil servant, nobody is happy. And I go to see President Obasanjo, who tells me the same thing. Everybody in your state, nobody is happy with you. And here I am trying to fix school because the children are not in school. We are number 26, 27 in Wayaka Neko when I started. I have people in my villages who celebrated my impeachment. And it's better let man go. Since he came, he doesn't listen. And the charity begins at home. Nobody has seen anything. And here, what type of thing is this? Something other people become, their village will change. His own has not changed. He hasn't even started building any house in this village. We're not even sure what is from this village. Because once we start, we must start building house immediately. The place, everywhere will start changing. We went to see him, he cannot see us. We want to do this. I don't know. Listen, that is where the root of what you know should be questioned. So that's what I told you. Let's discuss Nigeria. Your question is important, your topic is critical, but it must align to the society and what we are going through today. And that is where it is critical. That's why I said I want questions related to your topic. How are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to do this? So what I did now is to open up the topic for us to have a 20 minutes interaction, learning process. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this and everything? It is more important than anything. I've had 2 experiences this year I'm going to end with. And that's why I'm happy even meeting Prof. This year, I did a book. Sure, most of you, some of you might have been privileged to read it. There's a book by Professor Lewis. Professor Lewis is from Johns Hopkins. He wrote a book called Growing Apart. It's a book about Indonesia and Nigeria, how 2 nations with same trajectory grew apart. So I went to US. I sat down with Professor Lewis. And after he told me the story of Indonesia, I decided to do a tour of Indonesia. So I went to Indonesia, met from the Minister of Education, Minister of Health, Minister of Planning, Minister of Small Village and Small Businesses. And then went to meet the Vice President. I was privileged to sit down in the village to discuss with the most famous professor, president, who did what is being celebrated today. Widodo, Akolo Widodo. And he has 3 planets. He was surprised. I came to his village and said, Mr. President, I want to know what you did. And whenever I listen to what he told me and everything, it is very simple. It's not sophisticated. I published all that, showed my picture, house and everything. Joe Widodo lives in the same house. He lived as local government chairman. That was the house he lived as governor. That's the house he lived. He stayed after being president. 10 years. 10 good years. You can't park car inside the compound because you can only take 2 vehicles. So I parked on the road. I entered his house. We had a good conversation. He still goes to the same small restaurant he used to go when he was local government chairman. When I came, he was not there. So I asked them. They told me about the restaurant. I went there. The second thing I did is, all of you know about Professor Robinson, who wrote Why Nations Fail. He was Nobel Prize winner for economics last year with his team. And in accepting the prize, and one of his conversations, he says so many nations know what to do, but refuses to do it. Example of such. So many nations know what to do to prosper, but refuses to do it. Example of such nation is Nigeria. I spent hours with Professor Robinson in the University of Chicago on the 27th of September, walking around and talking, what do we do? They continue to resonate in what I believe we can do to get it right. It's not rocket science. We can turn around our country. And all of you, some of you who are here who thinks I'm no longer part of them, it's even worse. Because every day people are coming here to do this study. If you have 3 calls from Nigeria now, 4 is problem. So it's even more than 100%. Sometimes if you get called, I'm sure you're never getting called and say, how are you? Let's just talk. Every call has a problem. To reduce it, you must help us to stop the abuse that is local. Thank you.
Thank you.